Ji-won walked into the council meeting room and stopped. Something felt wrong. She looked at the seats where the humans always sat. They were empty. Again. This was the third meeting without any humans. Ji-won had worked with them for 10 years. They never missed meetings. Never. Captain Minsu always came early. He would smile and nod at everyone. He would bring those strange human drinks that smelled like burnt plants. But today, like the past 2 weeks, his seat was empty. The other council members talked about trade routes. They argued about mining rights. They did the same things they always did. But Ji-won could not focus. Where were the humans? She pulled out her communication device and tried to call Captain Minsu. No answer. She tried again. Still nothing. She had been trying for 2 weeks now. He never answered. Dr. Ha-young sat next to her. He was the council's expert on different alien species. He studied how they lived and what they needed. Ji-won leaned over to him. "Have you heard from any humans lately?" she whispered. Ha-young shook his head. "No, and that is strange. I get reports from human colonies every week, but for the past month, the reports have been getting shorter. Less information. Some colonies stopped sending reports completely." Ji-won felt her stomach turn cold. "What do you mean, stopped?" "I mean they are not answering our calls. The automatic signals from their cities still work, but no one talks to us anymore." The meeting continued around them. Chairman Dae-hyun talked about new trade agreements. The Zephyrian counselor Veltar complained about border disputes. Everything seemed normal. But Ji-won could not stop thinking about the empty human seats. After the meeting, Ji-won went to her office. She pulled up the records of human communications. What she saw made her hands shake. 3 months ago, humans sent hundreds of messages every day. They talked about trade deals. They shared scientific discoveries. They asked for help with their colonies. They offered to help solve problems between other species. 2 months ago, the messages dropped to about 50 per day. Still normal, but less than usual. 1 month ago, only 10 messages per day, and they were all very short. "Everything is fine. No problems here. Thank you for asking. 2 weeks ago, the messages stopped completely." Ji-won called Dr. Ha-young. "Can you come to my office? I need to show you something." When Ha-young arrived, Ji-won showed him the communication records. His face went pale. "This is not possible," he said. "Humans love to talk. They send more messages than any other species. Something is very wrong." They decided to check the space traffic records. These showed which ships were moving where in the galaxy. What they found was even more frightening. Human ships were leaving. Not just a few ships, hundreds of them. Every day for the past 2 months, human ships had been departing from colonies and space stations. Big ships, small ships, cargo ships, passenger ships, all heading toward the edge of the galaxy. "Where are they going?" Ji-won asked. Ha-young checked the navigation logs. "I do not know. The ships disappear from our sensors once they reach the outer systems. It is like they just vanish." They worked late into the night, checking more records. They found something that made their hearts stop. Human colonies were being abandoned, not attacked, not destroyed, simply emptied. The mining colony on Kepler 442 had 3,000 humans last month. Now it had 0. But the mines were still running. Automatic systems kept working. The lights were still on. The life support system still functioned, but no humans lived there anymore. The trade station at Proxima Central had been humanity's biggest commercial hub. 50,000 humans worked there. Now the station was empty. Ships still docked automatically. Cargo was still loaded and unloaded by machines. But no human voices answered the communication requests. Ji-won and Ha-young made a list. In 2 months, 47 human colonies had been completely evacuated. 12 space stations were abandoned. 6 research facilities were empty. Over 2 million humans had simply disappeared. The next morning, they brought their findings to Chairman Dae-hyun. He was a tall, serious man who had led the council for 15 years. He listened to their report without saying a word. Are you certain about this? He asked finally. Yes, sir, Ji-won replied. We checked everything 3 times. The humans are leaving. All of them. Dae-hyun was quiet for a long time. Have they said anything? Any explanation? No official word, Ha-young said. But yesterday we received one message. It was broadcast on all frequencies. Every species in the galaxy heard it. Dae-hyun leaned forward. What did it say? Ji-won pulled up the recording. A human voice spoke in clear, simple words. We thank the Council for the opportunity to serve alongside you for these many years. We have learned much from working with all the different species of this galaxy. Now it is time for us to move on to our next journey. We wish you peace and prosperity. Farewell. The message was signed by the human colonial government, but it gave no explanation. No reason for leaving. No hint about where they were going. That is all? Dae-hyun asked. That is all, Ji-won confirmed. The 3 of them sat in silence. Outside the windows, space traffic moved normally. Ships from dozens of species traveled between stars. Trade continued. Life went on. But something fundamental had changed. Counselor Veltar arrived for his scheduled meeting with Dae-hyun. He was a Zephyrian, with blue skin and 4 arms. He always moved quickly and talked loudly. Chairman Dae-hyun, Veltar said as he entered, I need to discuss the human situation. What situation? Dae-hyun asked, though he already knew. They are gone. All of them. My traders went to the human markets on Titan Station yesterday. The markets were closed. No humans anywhere. Just empty shops and silent hallways. Veltar sat down heavily. This is probably good news, he said. Humans were always too involved in everyone else's business, always trying to solve problems that were not theirs to solve. Now we can handle our own affairs without their interference. But Veltar did not sound happy. He sounded worried. That evening, Ji-won stood in her apartment looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, millions of humans were traveling to an unknown destination. They had left behind their homes, their businesses, their friends from other species. They had left without explanation. For 200 years, humans had been part of the galactic community. They had helped end wars. They had shared technology. They had been the species that other species came to when they needed help solving difficult problems. Now they were gone, and the galaxy suddenly felt much larger and more dangerous than before. Ji-won's communication device beeped. It was a news report. Fighting had broken out between the Korthak Empire and the Stellan Confederacy. Without human mediators, old disputes were starting again. The silence left by humanity's departure was beginning to fill with the sounds of conflict. 3 months had passed since the last human ship disappeared from the galaxy's sensors. The council chambers no longer felt the same. The empty seats where Captain Minsu and his team used to sit seemed to grow larger each day. Chairman Dae-hyun received the morning reports with growing concern. The galaxy was falling apart. The Korthak Empire had invaded 3 neutral worlds in the past week. Their emperor claimed these planets had always belonged to them. Without human peacekeepers to negotiate, the invasions continued unchecked. The Stellan Confederacy responded by blocking all trade routes to Korthak space. Ships carrying food and medicine could not get through. Millions of innocent beings would suffer. In the far reaches of the galaxy, the Vegan Consortium had declared a trade war against the Rigel Alliance. Cargo ships were being seized. Crews were taken prisoner. Commerce between dozens of worlds had stopped. Dr. Ha-young knocked on Dae-hyun's office door. Chairman, we have a bigger problem. Dae-hyun looked up from his reports. Bigger than 3 separate conflicts starting at once? Much bigger. Ha-young sat down and opened his datapad. I have been studying the human evacuation patterns. I wanted to understand why they left so suddenly. What I found is disturbing. He showed Dae-hyun a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked locations where conflicts had started since the humans left. Blue dots showed where humans had maintained permanent stations or diplomatic offices. Every single red dot was exactly where a blue dot used to be. This cannot be coincidence, Ha-young said. The humans were not just living in these places. They were preventing conflicts. Every human outpost was located at a potential trouble spot. Daehyun studied the map. How many potential conflicts are we talking about? So far, I have identified 237 separate situations that humans were managing. Border disputes, trade disagreements, resource conflicts, territorial claims. Some had been going on for decades. The humans kept them from turning into wars. The chairman felt a cold weight in his stomach. 237? And those are just the ones I can identify from public records. Intelligence Chief Suman is looking into classified files. She thinks the number might be much higher. As if summoned by her name, Suman appeared in the doorway. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a serious expression. She had been the council's head of intelligence for 8 years. "May I come in?" she asked. "I have something you need to see." Suman entered and closed the door behind her. "I have been going through human diplomatic records. The computers they left behind still have some data files. What I found changes everything we thought we knew about humans." She activated a holographic display. "This is a file called Active Mediation Protocols. It lists every conflict that human diplomats were secretly managing." The display showed hundreds of entries. Wars that never happened, genocides that were prevented, species that could have been wiped out but were saved by quiet human intervention. The Corvin-Zilith border war that we thought ended naturally 20 years ago. Suman pointed to an entry. Human mediator Captain Minsu spent 3 years in secret negotiations. He convinced both sides to accept a peace deal by offering human technology in exchange. She scrolled to another entry. The hegemony uprising that collapsed without violence 15 years ago. Human agents discovered the rebellion's plans and warned the government. Then they helped both sides find a peaceful solution. Daehyun read the entries with growing amazement. These are all conflicts that the council knows nothing about, because humans handled them before they became public problems, Suman confirmed. They had agents and diplomats working in secret across the galaxy. Not spies trying to gather information. Problem solvers trying to prevent disasters. Dr. Hayoung pulled up another file. It gets worse. Look at this document called Species Survival Assessments. The file contained detailed studies of every species in the galactic community. It listed their strengths, weaknesses, and most importantly, their likelihood of surviving without external help. The Zephyrians like Veltar, Hayoung read from the file. Highly aggressive but respond well to firm boundaries. Require regular external mediation to prevent self-destructive conflicts. Survival probability without intervention, 34%. Suman found another entry. The Stellans, intelligent and diplomatic but prone to emotional decision-making under stress. Need calm, logical voices during crises. Survival probability without intervention, 47%. They read through more entries. Almost every species had a survival probability below 60%. Only a few, mostly the older civilizations, rated above 70%. What does this mean? Daehyun asked, though he was beginning to understand. It means humans were not just members of the galactic community, Suman said quietly. They were its caretakers. They were keeping everyone alive. That afternoon, scientist Hyunwoo made another discovery. He had been studying the technology that humans left behind in their abandoned facilities. What he found made him call an emergency meeting. The humans were lying to us, he announced to the small group gathered in Daehyun's office. About everything. He activated a holographic projector showing the interior of an abandoned human research station. This facility was supposed to be studying asteroid mining techniques. That is what they told us. Look what was really inside. The projection showed rooms filled with advanced machinery, quantum computers that could process information faster than anything the Council had ever seen, energy generators that seemed to violate known physics, weapons that could destroy entire star systems. This technology is hundreds of years ahead of anything humans ever shared with us, Hyunwoo continued. They have been hiding their true capabilities for centuries. He showed them more facilities. A medical research station that could apparently transfer consciousness between bodies. A physics lab with machines that could fold space and time. a shipyard building vessels unlike anything in the known galaxy. Every human colony had facilities like this hidden beneath the surface, Hyunwoo said. They made us think they were simple farmers and traders. In reality, they were the most advanced species in the galaxy. Ji-won had been quiet throughout the meeting. Finally, she spoke. Why would they hide this from us? Maybe, Dr. Ha-young said slowly. They were protecting us from ourselves. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Humans had not been equals in the galactic community. They had been guardians watching over children, and now the children were alone. Reports continued to stream in throughout the day. The Korthak Empire had invaded 2 more worlds. The Stellan Confederacy was mobilizing its entire fleet. The trade wars were spreading to previously neutral systems. In just 3 months without human oversight, the galaxy was sliding toward total chaos. That evening, Ji-won stood in the empty human quarters of the council station. The room still smelled like those strange burnt plant drinks that Captain Minsu used to make. Personal belongings had been left behind, as if the humans expected to return someday. On Minsu's desk, she found a datapad with a note written in human language. She translated it slowly. If you are reading this, then you already know the truth. We never wanted to leave. But sometimes a parent must step back and let the child learn to walk alone. We hope you prove us wrong about your survival chances. We will be watching from far away, hoping you surprise us all. The note was not signed, but at the bottom, someone had drawn a small symbol that looked like a human hand reaching toward a star. Outside the windows, Ji-won could see ships from different species passing each other with obvious hostility. The careful balance that had kept the galaxy peaceful for 2 centuries was breaking down. Humanity had built a house of cards to keep everyone safe. Now they were gone and the cards were beginning to fall. Admiral Seojin stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the star map. Red markers showed the trails of human ships leaving the galaxy. Every trail ended at the same place, the edge of known space, where sensors could no longer track anything. Operation Recall is authorized, Chairman Daehyun had told him a week ago. Find the humans, bring them back, the galaxy is dying without them. Seojin commanded the largest search fleet in galactic history. Ships from 30 different species had joined the mission. Even former enemies were working together, united by their need to find humanity. Dr. Ha-young worked at a science station nearby. He had spent days analyzing the hyperspace signatures left by human ships. Admiral, I have something strange. Seojin walked over to the science station. What did you find? The human ships all followed the same route to the galaxy's edge. But when they reached the boundary, something impossible happened. Ha-young pointed to sensor readings on his screen. According to our instruments, the ships simply vanished, not destroyed, not hidden. They just stopped existing. That is not possible, Seojin said. Ships cannot disappear. That is what I thought. But look at this. Ha-young showed him energy readings from the boundary area. There are traces of technology we do not understand. The humans did something to space itself in that region. Captain Young-soo's voice came over the communication system. He commanded the deep space exploration ship Farseeker. Admiral, you need to hear this. We found something. Young-soo's ship had been investigating the void sector, an empty region of space beyond the galaxy's edge. Most species avoided it because nothing lived there. No planets, no resources, no reason to go. We detected artificial structures on a dead planet in system J847, Young-soo reported. The structures are old, very old, but they match human architectural patterns. Seojin felt his heart's beating faster. How old? Our dating equipment says millions of years, but that cannot be right. Humans have only been in this galaxy for a few thousand years. The fleet changed course toward the void sector. It took 2 days to reach the dead planet that Young-soo had found. When they arrived, Seojin could not believe what he saw. The planet's surface was covered with ruins. Massive cities built from materials that looked familiar, but felt wrong. The architecture was definitely human. The curved walls, the geometric patterns, the way buildings flowed together like art. but everything was ancient and weathered. "Take us down," Seojin ordered. The landing party included Seojin, Dr. Ha-young, and Young-soo. They wore environmental suits because the planet had no atmosphere. Their boots made small clouds of dust as they walked through the empty streets. The buildings were enormous, built for beings much larger than current humans, or perhaps built to house many beings at once. Everything was connected by bridges and tunnels. The entire city seemed designed as one giant organism. "Look at this," Dr. Ha-young called out. He stood in front of a wall covered with symbols. The writing was definitely human, but in a style that none of them had seen before. Seojin activated his translation device, but it could not read the ancient text. "Send images back to the fleet. Maybe someone can translate this." They explored deeper into the ruins. In what might have been a central building, they found a chamber with more writing. This time some of the symbols looked familiar. "I think this is a message," Ha-young said. "The newer symbols at the bottom. I have seen them in current human writing." It took hours, but they managed to translate part of the message. "The Watchers return home when their vigil ends." "Watchers?" Seojin asked. "What does that mean?" They found more ruins on other parts of the planet. All human in design, all millions of years old. It was as if an ancient human civilization had once lived here, then vanished, but that was impossible. Humans had arrived in the galaxy only recently. They had come from a small planet called Earth, which was nowhere near the void sector. Back, on the fleet, linguist Yoonji worked frantically to translate more of the ancient text. She was the best language expert in the council, able to understand dozens of alien languages. "Admiral," she called over the communication system, "I have translated more of the message. You are not going to like this." Seojin hurried to the communication center. "What does it say?" Yoonji's voice was shaky. "It says, 'To those who find this record, we came from beyond the great dark to watch over the young minds. We helped them grow. We kept them safe from themselves. But all children must learn to stand alone. When our watch is finished, we return to the endless journey. May those we protected find wisdom in our absence.'" The bridge fell silent. Every crew member had stopped what they were doing to listen. "There is more," Yoonji continued. "The final part says, 'If you read this, then the test has begun. Prove yourselves worthy, or join the countless others who failed.'" Seojin felt cold, despite the ship's heating system. "Test? What test?" Meanwhile, back in Council space, reports of new conflicts arrived every hour. The galaxy was tearing itself apart. The Korthak Empire had declared war on 3 neighboring systems. Their fleets were moving toward civilian worlds. Without human peacekeepers to negotiate, the invasions would continue until entire species were wiped out. The Stellan Confederacy had responded by forming a military alliance with the Rigel systems. They were preparing for a massive counterattack against the Korthaks. The war would spread across dozens of star systems. Smaller conflicts were breaking out everywhere. Trade disputes became shooting wars. Border disagreements led to planetary bombardments. Species that had lived in peace for centuries were suddenly ready to destroy each other. Chairman Dae-hyun received a report that made his hands shake. The hegemony wars had started again in the Beta Quadrant. 3 species had already gone extinct in the fighting. Their home worlds were now empty, lifeless rocks drifting in space. "How long can this continue?" Dae-hyun asked Intelligence Chief Soo-min. "Our analysts believe the galaxy will be at total war within 6 months," she replied. "Without human mediation, every old conflict is starting again, and new ones are being created by the chaos." Dr. Ha-young made another disturbing discovery while analyzing the ancient ruins. The planet in the void sector was not the only one. Deep space sensors had detected similar ruins on dozens of dead worlds beyond the galaxy's edge. "It looks like humans had a vast civilization out there," he reported to the search fleet. "All of it abandoned millions of years ago. All of it pointing toward the same conclusion." "Which is?" Admiral Seojin asked. "Humans are not originally from this galaxy at all. They came from somewhere else. Somewhere very far away." And this is not the first time they have watched over developing species. The search fleet pushed deeper into the void sector, following the trail of ancient human ruins. Each planet they found told the same story. Advanced civilizations that had been guided by mysterious watchers. Some had survived and grown beyond the need for protection. Others had destroyed themselves when the watchers left. On the 7th planet, they found something that changed everything. A message in current human language, carved into a monument that was only a few years old. Captain Young-Soo read it aloud over the communication system. To our friends in the council, we did not want to leave. We hoped you would grow beyond the need for our protection, but the signs indicate otherwise. Perhaps in a few thousand years, you will be ready to stand on your own. Until then, we go to watch over others who still have a chance. Do not follow us. Prove us wrong by surviving without us. The message was signed with a single name, Captain Minsu. Admiral Seojun realized the truth. Humanity had not disappeared. They had simply moved on to their next assignment. Somewhere in the vast universe, other young species were developing their first technologies and taking their first steps into space. And humanity was already there, watching over them with the same patient care they had shown the galactic community. The question was, could the galaxy survive without them? Linguist Yoonji had not slept in 3 days. The ancient text from the Void Sector ruins covered every surface of her workspace. Symbols, patterns, and fragments of messages in the oldest form of human language she had ever seen. I think I have found something, she announced to the research team gathered around her desk. Dr. Ha-young, Intelligence Chief Suman, and Chairman Dae-hyun leaned forward to see what she had discovered. This symbol appears in every ruin we have found. Yoonji pointed to a complex marking that looked like a tree with many branches. At first, I thought it was decorative, but it appears too often. It means something important. She pulled up holographic images of the symbol from different planets. On each world, this symbol is carved near what appears to be the final message left by the humans. I believe it represents their true purpose. Which is? Suman asked. Yoonji touched her translation device, and ancient human words filled the air. Her equipment turned them into language everyone could understand. The great filter awaits all who seek the stars. Most will fail, some will pass. The architects chose us to watch over those who might succeed. The room fell silent. Dr. Ha-young was the first to speak. Architects? Who are the architects? I believe they were the species that came before humans, Yoonji replied. The texts speak of them as the ones who gave humanity their mission. But the architects are gone now. They completed their own journey long ago. She showed them another translation. Every thinking species must face the great filter. They will develop weapons that can destroy their world. They will face resource shortages that could end their civilization. They will meet other species and choose between cooperation and conquest. Most choose poorly. Chairman Dae-hyun felt his stomach sink. And those that choose poorly? They destroy themselves, or they become so dangerous that they must be stopped before they harm others. Yoonja's voice was barely above a whisper. The texts list hundreds of species that failed the test. Their homeworlds are now empty. Suman pulled up galactic records on her datapad. How many species has the Council lost to warfare in the past 1,000 years? Officially, 12 species have gone extinct due to conflicts. Dae-hyun knew the numbers by heart. But those were called natural disasters or unfortunate accidents, were they? Dr. Ha-young asked quietly. Or were they species that failed their test? Meanwhile, historian Chan-woo was making his own discoveries in the Council archives. He had been studying human activities over the past 2 centuries, looking for patterns that everyone had missed. I found something disturbing, he announced, when he joined the research team. Humans have been trying to warn us for decades, we just never understood. He activated a holographic display showing human cultural exports, their stories, their movies, their literature that had been shared with other species. Look at the themes, Chan-woo said. Every human story is about the same thing, taking responsibility. growing up, learning to solve problems without help, standing on your own feet. He showed them examples. Human movies about young beings leaving their parents to face the world alone. Human books about civilizations that had to choose between war and peace. Human songs about growing stronger through hardship. They were not just entertaining us, Chanwu continued. They were trying to teach us. Every piece of human culture was a lesson about becoming mature enough to survive on our own. Dr. Hyung remembered something. The human philosophy classes that were offered at council universities. I always thought they were strange. What did they teach? Daehyun asked. The importance of self-reliance. The danger of depending too much on others. The need for every individual and every species to take responsibility for their own choices. Hyung paused. At the time, I thought humans were just being antisocial. Now I understand they were trying to prepare us. Yoonji found another ancient text that made everything clearer. The Watchers must not interfere too much. If the young species become dependent, they will never learn to survive alone. The Watchers can guide and protect, but they must not solve every problem. When the young species stop trying to grow, the Watchers must leave. The implications hit everyone at once. Humanity had not abandoned the galaxy out of cruelty or indifference. They had left because the other species were becoming too dependent on their help. Suman pulled up intelligence reports from the past 50 years. Look at this data. Every time the Council faced a major crisis, what did we do? The answer was obvious. They called the humans. Every trade dispute, every border conflict, every diplomatic crisis was handed over to human mediators. The Council had stopped trying to solve its own problems. We failed the test before it even began. Chairman Daehyun said slowly. We turned humans into our caretakers instead of learning from them. That evening, Chanwu made the most important discovery of all. In the deepest archives of human diplomatic records, he found a file called Final Assessment, Galactic Council Species Readiness. The file was dated just 1 week before humanity's departure. It contained detailed evaluations of every species in the Council. Current dependency level on human intervention, 93%, Chanwu read aloud. Ability to resolve conflicts without external mediation, 7%. Likelihood of survival without continued support, less than 5%. The report continued. After 2 centuries of guidance, the galactic community has become more dependent rather than more independent. They show no signs of developing mature problem-solving abilities. They immediately escalate minor disputes to violence when human mediators are not present. They have stopped investing in their own diplomatic capabilities. The final section was the most damning. Recommendation: immediate withdrawal of all human support. If the species cannot survive the transition to independence, they were never capable of passing the Great Filter. New assignment requested for species with greater potential for growth. Dr. Hyung found himself thinking about all the times he had seen human diplomats working. They never forced solutions on anyone. They always asked questions that helped other species think through their problems. They offered suggestions but let others make the final decisions. They were trying to teach us to fish, he said suddenly, instead of just giving us fish. What? Suman asked. It is an old human saying. Give someone a fish and they eat for 1 day. Teach them to fish and they eat for a lifetime. Humans were trying to teach us to solve our own problems, but we kept asking them to just solve everything for us. The research team spent the night going through more files. They found records of human diplomatic training programs that had been offered to other species. Very few had participated. They found human offers to share conflict resolution techniques. Most species had declined, preferring to let humans handle disputes directly. They found hundreds of small warnings that humans had given over the years, suggestions that species should develop their own peacekeeping forces, recommendations that the Council create its own mediation procedures, proposals for joint training programs where humans would teach others their methods. All of these offers had been politely declined. It was easier to let humans handle everything. As dawn broke over the Council station, the research team sat in exhausted silence. They had solved the mystery of humanity's departure. But the answer was more painful than they had expected. Humanity had not given up on them out of anger or disappointment. They had left because staying would only make the problem worse. Like parents who must let their children make mistakes in order to learn, humans had stepped back to give the galaxy a chance to mature. The question now was whether the galaxy could prove humanity's assessment wrong. Could species that had depended on human guidance for 2 centuries learn to stand on their own? Outside the windows, the first reports of the morning were arriving. 3 more systems had declared war. The Korthak Empire was preparing to invade the Stellan homeworld. Pirate fleets were attacking undefended colonies throughout the Outer Rim. The Great Filter was closing around the galaxy like a trap, and humanity was no longer there to help anyone escape. Jiwan entered the research room carrying a communication device. Her face was pale with worry. "I just received a message from the outer colonies," she said. "The automatic systems that humans left behind are starting to shut down. Their technology is withdrawing itself from our infrastructure." The safety net was disappearing. Soon, the galaxy would be entirely on its own. The test had truly begun. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any meeting in its history. Representatives from every member species had come, even those currently at war with each other. The chamber buzzed with tension and fear. Chairman Daehyun stood at the center, holding the research findings that had changed everything. Around him, the evidence of galactic collapse was overwhelming. 37 star systems were now in active warfare. 5 species had gone extinct in the past month. Trade routes were closed. Refugee ships fled from battle zones with nowhere safe to go. "We know the truth now," Daehyun announced to the assembled delegates. "Humanity did not abandon us. We failed them. We failed ourselves. We became children who refused to grow up." Councillor Veltar of the Zephyrians stood up angrily. "This is ridiculous. We do not need humans to tell us how to live. We are perfectly capable of managing our own affairs." "Are we?" Dr. Hae-Young asked, activating a holographic display. "In 4 months without human intervention, we have started more wars than in the previous 50 years. We are destroying ourselves exactly as they predicted." The evidence was undeniable. Every species in the chamber had contributed to the chaos. Old hatreds had resurfaced. Simple disputes had escalated to violence. Cooperation had collapsed into suspicion and fear. Admiral Seojin, recently returned from the failed search mission, stood to address the assembly. "I have seen the ruins of other civilizations that failed this test. Dead worlds where species like us once lived. They thought they were strong enough to survive without guidance. They were wrong." "So what do you propose?" demanded the Stellan. "Ambassador. That we beg humans to return and save us again?" "No," Daehyun said firmly. "That is exactly what we cannot do. If we want to prove ourselves worthy of survival, we must save ourselves." Intelligence Chief Suman stepped forward with a proposal that had been developed over sleepless nights of planning. "We call it the New Compact. Not a government that controls everyone, but a partnership where we help each other instead of relying on external mediators." The plan was radical. Instead of having humans solve their conflicts, species would work directly with each other. Instead of human peacekeepers, they would create joint forces made up of volunteers from every species. Instead of human technology solving their problems, they would share their own discoveries and innovations. "It will not be easy," Sumin continued. "We will make mistakes. Some conflicts will still happen. But we will learn from our failures instead of having someone else prevent them for us." The Korthak representative, a large warrior with scarred armor, laughed bitterly. "You expect natural enemies to suddenly become friends? The Stellans and Korthaks have been fighting for 1,000 years. "Then let's start there," said the Stellan ambassador unexpectedly. Everyone turned to look at her. Ambassador Kira was young for a Stellan, with silver skin that reflected her emotions. Right now, it showed determination mixed with fear. "My homeworld is under attack by Korthak fleets," she continued. "Millions of my people will die unless we stop this war. But I am willing to meet with Korthak leaders, without human mediators. Just us, trying to find a solution that does not end in genocide." The Korthak representative stared at her for a long moment. His name was General Thrak, and he had led many battles against Stellan forces. Why would you trust us to negotiate? In good faith? Because the alternative is the extinction of both our species, Kira replied. Humans warned us about this. They said we would destroy ourselves if we could not learn to cooperate. I refused to prove them right. The chamber fell silent. Then slowly, General Thrak stood and walked across the room to where Ambassador Kira sat. He extended his hand in the universal gesture of peace. I accept your proposal, he said. Let us try to save our people together. It was a small moment, but it changed everything. If ancient enemies like the Stellans and Korthax could attempt peace, then other species could try as well. Over the following weeks, the new compact began to take shape. It was messy and chaotic. Arguments broke out constantly. Some negotiations failed completely, but slowly progress was made. Dr. Haiyung established rapid response teams for scientific crises. When the Rigelian plague threatened to wipe out several colonies, teams of doctors from different species worked together to find a cure. They succeeded, but only after losing 2 entire worlds to the disease. Admiral Seojin created joint military forces to fight piracy and protect trade routes. The first mission was a disaster. Ships from different species could not coordinate effectively, and 3 freighters were destroyed. But they learned from the failure and improved their tactics. Jiwan worked with trade representatives to establish new commercial agreements. Many deals fell apart due to cultural misunderstandings. Some species stopped trading altogether. But gradually new partnerships formed based on mutual respect rather than human-mediated compromise. The process was painful. The galaxy lost more worlds to warfare. Entire species made poor choices and suffered the consequences. But other species learned from those mistakes and made better decisions. 6 months after humanity's departure, the new compact faced its greatest test. The hegemony wars in the Beta Quadrant threatened to spread across half the galaxy. 3 major alliances were preparing for total warfare. In the past, humans would have intervened immediately. Now the compact could only offer to mediate if all sides agreed to negotiations. The crisis lasted for weeks. Several small battles were fought. Thousands died. But eventually representatives from all sides met on the neutral world of Haven Station. The negotiations were conducted entirely by galactic species without any human involvement. Jiwan led the compact mediation team. Ambassador Kira represented one alliance. General Thrak spoke for another. Dr. Haiyung provided scientific evidence about the consequences of continued warfare. For 3 days, the talks seemed to fail. Old hatreds ran too deep. The differences appeared impossible to resolve. Several delegates walked out in anger. But on the 4th day, something changed. Instead of focusing on what divided them, the species began talking about what they shared. Fear for their children's future. Love for their homeworlds. Hope that the galaxy could be better than its violent past. The agreement they reached was not perfect. Some borders remained disputed. Some trade issues were left unresolved. But the immediate threat of galactic war was ended through their own efforts, without human guidance. 1 year after humanity's departure, Chairman Daehyun stood in the council chambers looking at the same star map that had once terrified him. Red markers still showed conflict zones, but there were fewer of them. Green markers indicated successful negotiations handled by galactic species themselves. The survival rate was not good. The galaxy had lost 12% of its member species to warfare, disease, and poor decisions. But 88% had survived. They were learning slowly and painfully to stand on their own. That was when the message arrived. It came from the edge of the galaxy, transmitted on frequencies that only human technology could generate. Every species received it simultaneously. To our friends in the Galactic Council, the familiar voice of Captain Minsu spoke across the void. We have been watching from afar. We are proud of your progress. The message continued. You have suffered losses that could have been prevented if we had remained, but you have also achieved victories that would never have been possible under our protection. You are learning to be strong instead of safe. In council chambers across the galaxy, representatives listened in stunned silence. We will not be returning, Minsu's voice said gently. You no longer need us. The next phase of your development must happen without external guidance. But know that you have passed the first part of the Great Filter. You have chosen growth over comfort. The transmission included technical data, star charts showing the locations of other developing civilizations throughout the universe, species taking their first steps into space, young worlds learning to build technology, cultures discovering that they were not alone in the cosmos. This information is yours now, Minsu explained. Use it wisely. Perhaps someday, when you have mastered the art of guidance without control, you will choose to help others as we helped you. The message ended with a simple farewell. The galaxy is yours now. Make us proud. That evening, Jiwon stood in the observation deck of the council station, looking out at the stars. Somewhere among those distant lights, humanity was beginning a new mission with species that had never heard of the Galactic Council. The cycle continued. Around her, ships from dozens of species traveled peacefully through space, not because humans enforced the peace, but because the species themselves had chosen cooperation over conflict. The galaxy was far from perfect. Wars still happened. Species still made mistakes. But they were learning from those mistakes instead of depending on others to prevent them. In the vast darkness between stars, sensors detected the faint signatures of unknown ships heading toward distant galaxies. Humanity's journey continued, carrying the lessons of patience and wisdom to civilizations that had not yet learned to look beyond their own worlds. And in the space they left behind, their former students began the long process of becoming teachers themselves. The Great Filter remained, waiting to test every species that reached for the stars.